Welcome back to the channel. So this video will be talking about glass, which is a hard, brittle, translucent substance that we use for different purposes like decorative items, laboratory wares and all. So firstly we'll see the additives that are being added. The major ingredient is the silica, which is added especially because of its high melting point, that is it can withstand more than 2000 degrees centigrade temperature because glass is heated at a high temperature and is made to cool quickly. Then sodium carbonate is also added in order to flux or counteract the silica because it reduces the melting point later and make the glass efficient. This also makes the glass soluble in water. The lime is also added to counteract this work and give the glass the stability. It makes the glass non-soluble in water. Next comes the lanthanum oxide, giving it the excellent light reflective properties. This is used especially in case of high quality lenses, glasses. So usually they use thorium oxide, but now as it is radioactive element, they started using lanthanum oxide. Next is the iron, which usually is used in movie projectors because these projectors usually they release kind of IR energy, infrared energy, and this ultimately causes heat. So to decrease the heat content, they add iron to the glass and they use those glasses for the movie projectors. So nextly we'll go to glass classifications. Soda lime glass. So usually if you see the composition, the silica's composition would range from 50 to 80% in the glass. It will be between this range. Soda lime glass is the most commonest glass that is used like for window panes, normal glass for water. This resists the corrosives, that is the acids. Soda of 12 to 18%, lime of 5 to 10%. Next would be the lead glass. This has the composition of silica of 54 to 65%, lead oxide to 18 to 38%, and soda of 13 to 15%. Here this lead glasses gives you brilliance to the glass. So these kinds of glasses are also called as crystal glass because it gives you a kind of crystal nature. If you see, because of this reason they are considered to be a decorative glasses and it is very expensive. You can take like thermometer tubes, neon lamps, they use these kinds of glasses. Now borosilicated glass, which has a composition of silica 70 to 80%, boric acid is added because it gives the glass to resist high temperatures. That's the reason they are used in laboratory wares, that is Pyrex glasses and all. Like 7 to 13% of it, alkali 4%, aluminum oxide of 2 to 7%. Next would come the aluminosilicate glass with composition of silica 67%, aluminum oxide 17%. This aluminum silica mixture would give you a high chemical durability to the glass. So even these kinds of glasses they would be using in labs and all. So calcium oxide and magnesium oxides are also used. Next comes the fused silica. This is composed of high purity silica because here they use the combination of ingredients. Till now we were seeing the separate kind. So they use these combinations to get heat resistance of up to 1200 degrees centigrade. Whereas borosilicate is not that much, but it can resist up to like some 800 or something or below of that, but not of 1200 degrees centigrade. So they add sodium oxide, calcium oxide, boric acid and all. Then comes the 96% silica. This 96% silica glass is also called Vicar. Remember them, they may ask you. So this along with 4% boron trioxide would give you heat resistance of up to 900 degrees centigrade. Okay. These kinds of glasses are mainly used to make heat resistant glasses. So next coming to the tempered glass. Yeah, these kinds of glasses are designed to in such a way that they are heated to high temperatures and they are cooled suddenly, so that this kind of process gives the glass a good strength, tensile strength, so that this does not break quickly. And if it suppose because of high strength, more than its required strength, if it breaks also, it just dices off, it breaks into pieces. This tempered glass you can see in our mobile phones on top of the display, so that it protects the display settings. Next is the laminated glass. So this kind of glasses are a kind of glass like where there is a plastic layer in between the two glasses. Okay. So why are they making these kind of glasses? To make them more resistant towards the elasticity. They increase the elastic nature of the glass so that it doesn't crack quickly and break off. These kind of strategy is used in bulletproof glasses. Okay. Yeah, so if you see bulletproof glasses in cars and all, you find this laminated glass structure. Next, coming to the analysis of the glass, like they use micrometer screw gauge to measure the thickness of the glass. The thickness varies from glass to glass, so that we can identify what is the glass belong to. Spherometer to measure the radius of the glass fragments with curved surface, like you can see the lenses, the car lenses, or any glass that is having curved nature. This kind of thing is used to measure the radius. Why are we doing all such things? Is to know the manufacturer, like identify the exact glass composition and what is the glass of. So they use R is equal to L square by 6h plus h by 2, where L is the mean distance between the legs of spherometer, h is the height of the curved surface. So R is the radius that we will be finding out. The next analysis would be refractive index. So this refractive index makes us easily identifiable to one of the other glasses. So for glasses like automobile headlight glass, it is 1.41 to 1.49. It ranges in this RI, whereas bottles, window glasses, ophthalmic glass would range from 1.51 to 1.52. Remember them, they ask you in the exam. Water, they have asked in the previous question, what is the refractive index of water? It is 1.33. Okay. Now coming to a term called Beck-line in glass. So we might have come across, like usually in refractometer, this Beck-line is where there is a difference in the refractive index of the glass and the medium in which they put the glass. So at that time, there would be kind of halo effect that arises at the edges of the glass, that is the perimeter of the glass. This kind of effect is called as Beck-line. Next, coming to the color. See, even the glass doesn't remain very pure, very translucent white or something. That you have very decorative glasses, you have different kinds of colorful glasses, or sometimes because of some impurity or some additives that are added, they can give the color to the glass. So how do we identify? Why this is also important, because in previous questions they have asked regarding the cobalt. Suppose they ask you what happens if the cobalt is added to the glass, what kind of color does it produce? So that's the reason. Iron oxide, if it is added to the glass, would give you blue-green. Iron oxide along with chromium would give you richer green color. Sulfur with carbon and iron salts give you a kind of amber yellow color. You might have seen the amber bottles, right? A brownish yellow color. So that kind of color. Manganese gives you purple color. Selenium added to the glass give you red or pinkish shade. Tin oxide or antimony, or it can be arsenic. These three would give you a white opaqueness to the glass. Cobalt, if added, would give you blue color. Nickel also will give you blue color. Copper oxide giving you a turquoise kind of color. So this is the kind of color that it gives you. So do remember these colors, they do ask. Coming to fractures. So firstly, radial fracture. So when it is a normal glass, once there any force is being applied to the glass, it starts forming a radial kind of fractures. See, that was the first fracture that appears on the glass. This is usually seen on the opposite side of the impact. Suppose if the force is from this side, but the fracture happens in the back side of the glass. that is radial fractures, and this would be like it starts radiating outwards, like from here it starts radiating outwards from the point of impact, that is called as radial fracture. Whereas concentric fractures are secondary. After radial fractures you get concentric, which arises as series of circles. You can see them. Yeah, so first is these radial fractures, then comes the concentric fracture. This happens at the same side of the impact. Okay, so that is the difference between the radial fracture and the concentric fracture. They have asked you many times, like regarding the impact, where does the fractures occur and all. Hertzian fractures, this is because of the tension that has been there, not because of compression. These two fractures are because of some compression, but this is not the case. This gives you a kind of cone shape to the glass. Why does this occur is because of high force, sudden high force that is usually seen in bullet firing. If there is high bullet firing case, it forms a crater. This is the crater that is formed, and this remains the same. If there is any cone shape that is formed because of bullet, it just remains the same because of that kind of strength that is being made. This is also called as cone fractures or Hertzian fractures. Because of the bullet firing, this usually occurs. Remember this. Then internal pressure. Internal pressure is usually like thermal fracture, that is heat fractures. If there is any kind of hot liquid that is poured onto the glass, what happens suddenly? Sometimes we observe a cracking of the glass. It starts creating irregular fractures, not these kind of radial or concentric fracture. And the impact fractures, that also occurs because of high stress that has been applied to the glass from inside, then also this has the fractures. Next, coming to the other fractures, like see rib marks or conchoidal fractures. Remember these other name also. They are like curved shells that is usually like, see, this is like curved markings that appears the right, this is the surface, right angle to that of the surface, this rib marks occur. Okay, now the Haeckel marks appears at the right angle to the rib marks. So these are Haeckel marks, where this is the thing, it perpendicular to this, these marks happen because of high stress or something. This kind of markings happen. Backward fragmentation, projecting back of the glass. See, when we usually there is any bullet firing or something, the glass, because of the force, it comes back to the same person who has been firing. So that is called backward fragmentation. So Haeckel marks are perpendicular to that of the rib marks, whereas rib marks are perpendicular to that of the surface of the glass. Okay. Then finally, the biggest important thing, the 4R rule. We all know, but still, the ridges on radial cracks are at right angles to the reverse side of the impact. So as we know, the radial cracks form at the reverse side, the opposite side. And these ridges are nothing but the rib marks that we have seen are at the right angle. So that's what this rule explains. Density gradient. This is one of the technique that is used to differentiate the glass, like whether it is of higher density or lower density, so on. So they use heavier liquids called bromofoam, methylene iodine, iodomethane, whereas lighter liquids, xylene, bromobenzene, benzene, nitrobenzene, dimethylbenzene. So why am I telling? They may ask you in the exam, like if the bromofoam is there, and like whether is it higher liquid or it is lighter liquid, whether it is having high density or low density. So for that case. So this is all about the important points under glass. You can just have a look and remember all these points. And I wish you all the very best for your coming exam, and stay calm, do well.